off by how long this video is. Don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. I got this either as a present or I got it on discount, so I did not pay very much money for this and am thus not bitter on account of that. Prisoner of War, PlayStation 2 video game review. And I think I'll do it. There we go. And starting with intro. I think my face is happy or fuzzy. Must be because I finally got to play this game again. I found an extremely inexpensive copy of this. 0.01 euros. Basically what I had to pay was the minimal shipping fee of 3 euros. I used to only have this for the PC, and as such, it's been ages since I could run it, no matter how I fiddled with the settings. The most recent computer, it won't even install at all, and just says, oh, compatibility issues. Now I have it for the PS2, put the disc in, turn the machine on, and I can play it. Sometimes I really do love consoles. Plot. After being shot down in Nazi Germany, you have to escape the prisoner of war camp that you're placed in. On plot. Now, I used some information directly from the walkthrough by JavaKid. Now, you go to a few different camps, and apparently all of them existed in the real world, and one or two of them may even be famous. Now, quoting from a review, the story of the game is very well written and presented. And the story progression is good, and the stakes keep getting higher. You know, when you start playing this, you don't really know about, you know, at first glance, it is about you escaping from these prisoner of war camps, and that by itself would probably get, yeah, without an overall plot and without you solving something, it wouldn't be the same. You know, that's one of the problems that the Hitman series has, where the first one, they do have an overall story, and, you know, by the end of that game, you realize that you've accomplished something, even though for a while of it you don't quite know. You know, hints are dropped here and there. And then the other games kind of have a problem with doing that. You know, Commandos has, you know, largely avoided the problem, in part because the gameplay is just so addictive, and you get so into, you know, each level has some story going on, you know. But yeah, this game, it would be so much lesser if not for the overall stakes. I mean, you know, if you like redid the game, it wouldn't be hugely difficult to remove those aspects, and what there'd be left is just you escaping from several prisoner of war camps, but it would have much less of an effect on the player, and I really commend the developers for realizing this and dealing with it, because it really you know, there are problems with this game, but they're, you know, not having stakes and not leaving the player with closure and a sense of accomplishment is not one of those problems. And cutscenes are in engine, so you know, they're fairly limited. It's one of those things where as you're playing it, you mostly just notice, you know, kind of graphical and, excuse me, so, you know, limitations like that. But the moment you get actual cutscenes, you know, suddenly it's really okay. Yeah, it really shows limitations, and yeah, and it's quite realistic. Excuse me. Let me just check that my phone is on silent. It is. And I really like that every physical feat that you can, you know, undertake in this game is completely realistic. You know, there are a lot of games like this. Yeah, just to give, you know, if this had stuff along the lines of, you know, Prince of Persia games, for example, it would be, you know, don't get me wrong, it would still be a fun game, but Ubisoft, get on that. I would very much like, I would play the crap out of a prison escaping game with like Prince of Persia, you know, physics, and I mean, there's a little bit of that going on in the original Sense of Time game, but yeah, and I suppose I should specify. I mean, really, are there any unbelievable physical feats in the games before Sands of Time? I don't think so, but yeah. From then on, you know, this would be a completely different game. Instead, you know, the disempowerment and the realism are a huge part of this game, and again, really lead to this sense of accomplishment. You know, if you could leap between walls and, you know, all this, you know, stuff. I mean, even there's not even like a running jump kind of thing. Really, you can't really jump at all in this game. You climb and you crawl under and stuff like that. But yeah, it would be a completely different, you know, and yes, it's stealth, but you can run while doing stealth in Splinter Cell Blacklist. I'm gonna try not to run. I know I bring that game up way too often, but I do really, really love a lot about it. But yeah, it makes you feel that much more that you really accomplished something, that you have all these limitations. Yeah, you know, basically, you know, you use your ingenuity and these, you know, various, the equipment again isn't like out there kind of stuff. It's stuff you would find in a prisoner of war camp, and yeah, so that's also really now. one reviewer notes that, although he gave it a 3 out of 5, but he notes that the story is basically, yeah, I'm not even sure. He poses this as a criticism. He says that the story is the same thing all game, just different camps. I'm not entirely sure what. Yeah, there's an overarching story, and I don't understand why he thinks that's a bad thing. I guess he thinks that there should have been a different story for each camp, maybe even like a different protagonist for each camp or something. But yeah, I don't know, put words in his mouth. But yeah, I don't really understand what, when I first read it, I felt like I got, but thinking more about it, yeah, there's an overarching story, and you can't address the whole thing from within a single camp. There, I suppose, I don't want to give away. Yeah, there are things that you can only deal with in certain places, and yeah, you might be escaping one camp and then realize that in another camp there's something going on that you maybe have to deal with, and so you make sure to get into that camp, but yeah. But I will say, and I'll get a little bit more into that, the fact that you just keep going into other camps, it may be a little contrived. And again, this game would not, if, for one thing, if there was only one camp, it would be way too short. Even if the very last of the camps was the one camp that was in the game, it would be way too little for a full game. And yeah, that's one thing. And if they tried to fit the entire story into a single camp, it would also be much too, yeah. I mean, really, it's kind of every time you get to the end of one camp, you have a new climax, and these, each time get bigger and tougher. And it's not, it's not the only game to have the you know the last portion of, say, a level in a Commandos game or a Hitman game is also often the hardest, when you have to get away, when you finally fully implement, if you're going for, in Hitman, killing as few as possible, if you're going for, in Commandos, being discovered as little as possible, the last part, where you kill the target and then have to get away in Hitman, where you maybe blow something up and then have to get to safety in Commandos, that is the hardest part. And yeah, if it would, and they're nicely varied. They don't feel like it's just the same basic thing. In general, I wouldn't really say that there are any two goals or objectives in this that are just completely the same, that are too similar. Now, this might be a review where I end up like skipping through stuff or talking fast, because I've got 44 pages of notes and I'm barely into it because I'm coming up with stuff that I didn't write down. This, I feel like, is a pretty decent point. This guy gave it a 2.5. This entity gave it a 2.5 out of 5 and pointed out, why must the Americans be seen to be the heroes again, whilst the British and Germans and French and Polish and Russian and Dutch are seen as bumbling fools? There wasn't a single American prisoner. Yeah, I guess I should. Yeah, but he points out that in one of the camps there wasn't a single American prisoner during World War II, and that's, yeah, and I do think, could we really not have just at least have it be a Brit? But no, it's this, you know, I talk about his character in the other review, so I'm not going to get too into it. But yeah, it's this typical American Hollywood handsome lead guy with, you know, smart ass comments, and like he, you know, no matter who he, you know, he can be standing with Germans pointing guns at him, and he'll still be making wisecracks and such, you know. And it's just, I do think I would have liked for the tone to be different from of the game. That's one of my personal main issues with it, and has always been. I've always been fairly forgiving of graphics and other, yeah. Now, it's also, I mean, if this was like I don't mind that there are stories that are lighter, you know. I quite appreciate that in games like Beyond Good and Evil and Psychonauts, you know. But this is literally about World War II, and I mean, you're not in a concentration camp, but you are still surrounded by German soldiers in a camp, you know. I just feel like I don't think that it's... I think there are very few cases in which World War II should not be treated with a lot of serious... Yeah, you know, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. And one reviewer compares it to Heart's War. There is distinctly less Bruce Willis, though. And yeah, and you know, you're asked to do various things to continue the plot, from getting a key, stealing a camera from the mailroom. And he goes on to say they lead to a pretty cool ending. This game does have a lot of comic relief, so don't think the game will be too serious for you. I mean, if they had made, like, if they had gone on to do a spiritual successor to this, and it wasn't set in World War II, and it was silly, you know, then I would have a much easier time with, and had made this one more serious. Now, this note really should have been under currency, but I'll go ahead and read it here. I'll get more into currency, but you know, some of the things you can do with it are bribing certain guards. You can pay friends to create distractions for you. You can buy things like hint, boot polish, disguises, and other things to help you on your way. When you have completed your first objective, you progress on to the next one, and each gets harder as you go along. And escaping from the first camp is fairly easy, but yeah, each camp gets more difficult. There are less, you're allowed less freedom in each camp. And yeah, you know, you'll be sneaking around the camp under the cover of night and sometimes in broad daylight. Perform various tasks to make friends or to achieve more important objectives. And a deeper storyline develops slowly as you progress through the game. Throughout the game, the story takes some twists and turns, and which provide a brief cinematic experience between missions. And he doesn't think that they were very creative with the plot. And Yeah, and I suppose that, he says, it feels as though they were merely writing a few scenes to give them an excuse to present you with missions they had already designed. And I think that is maybe, yeah, I could see that. And I don't think they got away with it the way the, Looking Glass Studios did with Thief of the Metal Age. I suppose the Metal Age is how I should. Sometimes it's stressful to figure out where to stress them. Sorry. And let's see. Excuse me. And this guy, this is from a 2.5 review out of 5. However, it's the fact that the plot feels ripped straight out of the sort of movie you used to watch on a Sunday afternoon that forms the basis of its appeal. It sets the tone for the game perfectly, right down to the faux movie poster style cover art. And yeah, you are presented with a version of the war in which the lone hero won't die no matter what, and in which we know that all will work out okay. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be the occasional spot of peril, just that the plot creates a very safe atmosphere in this game, and no matter how cliche-ridden and pleasantly familiar, it's a plot that still manages to suck you in and carry you along. And in all honesty, the plot is... And yeah, he goes on to say, the plot is probably all that's going to keep you playing through to the end of this title. I don't agree with that. Excuse me. And moving on to miscellaneous. One reviewer who gave it a 3 out of 5 said, slightly above average and funny, but for all the wrong reasons. And some point that it draws its inspiration from The Great Escape. And some point out that it's not, you can't, it doesn't compare to games like Metal Gear Solid and such. And yeah, it is not as polished as a lot of stealth games are. And obviously this is one of those games where I'm not really saying, I don't expect a lot of people to watch this and go out and buy it today. But I'm talking about when you played it, if you did. And yeah, it's not, it is the kind of game where you do have to, if you're into the concept and you like, you enjoy the gameplay enough, then and you're ready to forgive some minor and a few major issues, then you can have a lot of fun with the game. But yeah, it's not even remotely comparable in polish and excuse me, an overall, you know, everything working out, you know, working together perfectly as something like Commandos 2 and Hitman Blood Money. Now, this one review, you know, says it's drawn out, trial and error driven missions, sloppy control, twitchy camera work, and somewhat lacks artistic polish prevent Prisoner of War from ever becoming what it aspired to be. The scope was grand, but the final draft a bit unpolished. However, in terms of pure atmosphere, originality, and novel ideas, the game is a success, taking an action stealth-driven genre and making it into more of an adventure title in much the same way. And I don't really... Yeah, everything is a problem waiting to be solved. Every character a potential clue or touch of immersion. And yeah, it's important to look at the game from this angle, and not the one propped above the ninja who's waiting to lop off an opponent's head. When taken as an adventure, a substitute for a wrongly thought dead point-and-click genre, Prisoner of War succeeds admirably, but not perfectly. Since its puzzles are logically driven and its conversations engaging, there's enough to warrant interest, but not enough content to maintain it, and that's very well put. And characters. Now, as I've already gone some into, this is sometimes too silly and light. Situations that are in reality serious and violent have goofy voices, goofy lines of dialogue, and say incompetent guards fumbling around them. And this does take some of the bite out of tense sequences. One of the worst, or if you want to look at it that way, best cases is when your radio warning is repeatedly misheard, not responded to, or the like. But it is only story stuff, so cutscenes and dialogue, not the rest of the gameplay. And each camp has someone who you can gamble with for money, some you can talk to for information, some you can talk to for the next mission objective. They may not have a ton of personality, and they're only as diverse as the Allied forces during World War II. Now, and this is from a professional review. The frustration sets in when you realize that very little is laid out for you in Prisoner of War. Developers encourage interaction with a dozen or more inmates, not to mention crooked guards, to gain valuable information about your current objective. It usually works where after completing the previous mission you'll be given the next objective, but it's totally up to you to figure out how to go about it. The different prisoners have different dialects, angles, and interacting with them can open up a menu of 2 to 4 phrases you can say to each of them. It takes a pretty comprehensive survey of guys to get the bits and pieces of info you need to come up with an idea of how to accomplish the task at hand. It will feel familiar to RPG fans, but there's very little item collection or leveling up to make the chatter immediately worth it. Furthermore, the game more revolves around listening than talking. Sometimes it's necessary to sit for great lengths of time in a conversation, and I would have to say that I think that a lot could have been accomplished by putting little icons. I mean, this is a game that tries to shy away from too many overtly video gamey like you know, it doesn't, not a lot will have like indicators of like, you know, where like, if you know, there are certain stealth games where if a guard is unsure of where you are, there might be like you know, question marks above his head, and you know, yeah, there's, yeah, this doesn't have that, and it doesn't have that kind of thing much at all. I do think that this would have been a good idea to, you know, give, yeah, put a marker over the head of someone who can provide hints, or you know, highlight them on the mini radar, something, because it really is. There were several times where I accidentally spoke to the wrong person simply because they're not that different looking. You know, a lot of them are wearing uniforms, and as such, you know, yeah, a lot of these uniforms look fairly similar to one another, and I get it. You know, this is, yeah, the situation that they're in, the setting, kind of calls for that kind of thing. But I do think that they could have done more to, yeah. But yeah, further on that, what I wrote to this. Honestly, this is pretty true. They could have made this more straightforward. Maybe when you're giving advice, do that thing Thief the Dark Project and Thief the Metal Age do during briefings. Show a screenshot of... Does this happen in Deadly Shadows? I forget. Show a screenshot of the basic area you're talking about, a still of the object you're looking for. I'm not saying tell the player the route to take, but put something visual there so that all the listening doesn't feel so tedious. I will say that on replays, once you know what to do, thankfully you don't have to sit through very much at all. You know, only the get this thing, I got the thing, okay, then get this thing, rinse and repeat, not all the rest of the describing, the hints, etc. But yeah, the first time you play it, and when, you know, unless you're just going to go out and try out a bunch of different things without much guidance, other than that, yeah, you have to go and talk to people to get hints, and from there further, yeah, it's just, it is a lot. They could have improved that. It's one of the areas where there could have been more polish. Now, yeah, and I forget if this is the same site review, but it is a site review. Each prisoner has his own look with a distinctive uniform, insignia, and face, but it's still extremely difficult to tell the difference between two similar characters at a glance. And since the game's clock is always ticking away, time is of the essence, and it's really irritating to be talking to the wrong guy knowing time is running out. You eventually realize who the truly helpful prisoners are, but knowing where and how to find them is in a timely manner is an expert level skill that you probably won't develop until you're 75% through the game. And yeah, that could definitely have been improved. Yeah. Now, and yeah, the voice acting is talented mostly, especially for the main cast, except many of the German ones. They include a multitude of allied ranks and nationalities. The accents vary, with several being spot on. The humor can be well done, if at least a smidgen is a bit silly. And the characters are well written and consistent. And I suppose that covers that. Roll call. Now, yes, and this is from a this pro review where they gave it an 82 out of 100. The greatest part of the whole game is the originality displayed in the gameplay. The only game I can remember working as Prisoner of War does is an ancient Spectrum game called School Days, and school with a K instead of CH. In this game, you had to escape school, and one of the most important things you had to remember was to be on time for register and then go do what you want, much like many real-life schools. You see, in Prisoner of War, you live within a working prison, living in real time. Roll calls are made, there's mealtime, etc. You have pretty much free reign to explore the camp, but you must be at roll call or face getting the armed guards looking for you. Similarly, if you get spotted in a restricted area, you'll be shot before you can say "Aus was ist der Tisch gemacht?", which I guess is something like, yeah, never mind. I don't know German. Although I do appreciate the German Amazon for having this so cheaply and delivering to a country, unlike the British one. This is it's one of the things I really love about the game, and which really makes it stand out. And I think there are too few games out there that have an actual game clock and with different, there's daytime, nighttime, and different weather, and it's, for example, daytime is brighter, so it's both easier for you to see your way and easier for guards to see you at a distance. Whereas nighttime, yeah, it's easier to not be seen, but it's also harder to see. And yeah, I forget. I didn't really time it this time. I think I did in other plays, but yeah, there are all 24 hours of the day on the clock. And I think maybe it's about 1 minute of real lifetime is real, yeah, actual time, and not the terrible movie channel, but yeah, the corresponds to an hour of in-game time. And that does mean that sometimes you basically only have a few minutes to get from where you are to where you need to be, and possibly to back where you were, without being seen, without, yeah, and possibly hiding something that you're carrying in your hands. And this is, again, something that I think too few games do. In this game, it's in part social stealth. It's in part that if you're seen, it doesn't matter if you're seen at the right time in the right place. If you're in a place at a time where you're allowed, they don't care. They're nothing that, they're not, it doesn't matter. You can run back and forth, you can throw stones. At most, they're gonna be like, what are you doing? Stop that. That's annoying. They're not gonna punish you for that. But the moment that you're carrying something in your hands that they don't, that you're not allowed to, they're gonna, even if you're in disguise, they're gonna be like, what is that? What are you doing? And you can drop it. But if they find the thing you drop, they're going to pick it up and they're going to put it a place. And that means more time you have to spend getting the thing. And the great thing is, when you do drop a thing, a lot of time can actually pass if it's not found. If you dropped it in a place where it wasn't found, I dropped the thing and then I saved my game, which always forwards the time, and when I went back to the place, the object was still there. It hadn't moved an inch, because it was in a place where no one passed through, and the game remembers these things. And that again is a huge, because that means you have to strategize. You have to figure out, should I bring this back with me? Should I leave it in a place where is it not going to be found? Should I just go ahead and, yeah, there's a lot of yeah, at times you won't be able to do the whole thing in a single go, because you have to get back for roll call, for example. And you can also, if you do get it back to your sleeping quarters, anything you can carry, you can hide in your hiding place where it will never be found. They are never, I'm almost 100% certain nothing you put there is ever going to be found. But the moment that you take something out of there, if you get captured, even if you didn't have it in your hand, if you had it in your pocket, they're going to take the stuff you had in your pocket and put it in a place, and you can maybe bribe someone to get it back, or you can go and steal it back and such. But yeah, there I get why games typically say you can carry all of this stuff. You can just, and some games do have limited inventories, but it's still very often you can carry a lot of stuff. I fairly recently got done playing Silent Hill 4, The Room, which has a limited inventory, which is unusual for a Silent Hill game. But you're still running around with like a whole sword, in your pants. You can carry several entire swords in your pants, and that's, yeah. In this game, if it's too big to fit in your pants, yes, she's probably not gonna wanna. You will have to hold it in your hand, and you can only carry one thing in your hand. Which again, because if you hypothetically, let's say you were running around with something in both of your hands. At that point, it's going to get kind of heavy, and then you certainly wouldn't be able to crawl up and down ladders and such, And yeah, you can only carry one handheld item at the same time, and yeah, when you actually have to get past guards with this, you especially have to be careful. Even, yeah. Now, excuse me. Now, this is, yeah. This person gave it a 3 out of 5. If you miss the morning roll call, search party will search the camp. But after a while, they give up. And if you wander around the camp again, no one cares that you went missing. And I agree, that is too forgiving. At the same time, I do get why they went. If they needed to find a happy medium, because if the moment you miss a roll call, if they would just always be looking for you, that's too strict. But the fact that they just completely give up is too forgiving. What I would basically say is, if maybe once you had missed roll call, if you could like go and report to someone and say, I'm sorry I missed roll call, and they would maybe like, yeah, maybe they'd take whatever you were carrying on you or something, and so that you had to work that into, you had to consider that for your strategy. I think that could have worked. The fact that they're just completely, yeah, I don't think, and it doesn't even, they don't even bring it up at next roll call, And that's another thing I think that they could have, next roll call, they should maybe have singled you out and been like, yeah, and maybe you should have faced some time in prison or in the cooler or something. You're already in prison. And basically, you know, the day is split into, you know, different, yeah, you know, no matter what time of day, you are expected to be in a certain place, and you know, they don't care if you go to meals. You know, you can't tell a stone to eat, so no one ever sees you eat. They don't care, but you are going to be in the mess hall. And some camps say you can be outside the mess hall, whatever, but within the basic mess hall area, you know. But if you're spotted somewhere else during the meal, yeah, that's you're going to be punished. And you know, they expect you to be in your quarters the entire night. And then there is the most free the most freedom you get at any point in the day is what they call afternoon free time, where you're basically, yeah, you're allowed to be in different areas. And the yeah, for example, some of the camps you won't be allowed to be in the basic outside area. You know, you're expected to be inside a building, and if they spot you outside of that building, be it the mess hall, be it your barracks, you will be punished. But afternoon free time, you can be outside, and you know, and a number of the prisoners will be. So if you want to bribe someone to, if you want to pay someone to get to do a to cause a distraction, you are actually, yeah, he's outside just like you are, because again, otherwise he's inside the barracks and you're expected to be as well, or the mess hall. And if you want to cause a distraction, but you have to be in a completely different place, you have to go in there first and then not be seen going back out. So yeah, and of course that does mean that, again, afternoon free time, you have to make the most of it, because the moment that's passed, yeah. Now, the prison camps in Prisoner of War are living environments full of suspicious guards on patrol, barbed wire fences, fellow POWs going about their business and time-sensitive events. The daily routine in order includes morning roll call, breakfast, morning exercise, lunch, afternoon free time, dinner, evening roll call, and lights out. They happen at the same time every day and provide the structure for your activities, since you'll be ditching meals and whatnot to accomplish tasks on the different prison camps. And yeah, and the in-game clock always lets you know where you should be at that moment and what your next appointment is going to be. And the thing is, and I think some people may have missed the following, and I'm not blaming them. I would maybe say it. I think it is said early in the game, but if you miss it, yeah, you really miss it. Yeah, just briefly, there's a thing where you have to, yeah, the camera's already been mentioned. The first time you use that, you have to activate it in a way that's different from anything you've really done before, pretty much. And every time I play this game, this time I made sure to look it up, but every previous time I get to where I need to use the camera, and then I'm like, wait, how do I use the camera? Because everything else is so straightforward in the game that you actually, but for that you have to go into first-person perspective, then you have to press a key that activates the camera, and then you can start using it. And I don't think it had to be like that. I would definitely say that it could have been on one of the controls that you actually use, instead of on this other key that, you know, I've lost count of how many times on PC, again, this is the only time I've played on PS2, where I get to the part where I need to use it, and then I'm like, wait, how do I use it? And I have to exit the game and then look up the controls in the menu before you actually start up the game. And then it's like, oh, and then I go and redo it, and then I know how to use it. Every time there's something like that in the game, I think the way that the game should handle it, again, this is one, okay, almost every time. I do think that there are some times. This is a game where, when you get there, you are bringing the camera. You're not going out and finding the camera and then going and using it. The moment, and even so, the moment that you find the camera, certainly, the game should briefly tell you this is how you use it, because it doesn't. And it might be one of the people who hint. I'm not entirely sure, but I definitely don't think that it should be this way. Yeah. But yeah, the thing that a lot of people, I saw some complaints that I think are due to this. When you press, you know, on the PS2, it's going to be select. You get a series of brief menus where you can look up what you have in your inventory, you can look up what you have in your hiding place. And one of the things you can look up is a full list of the entire day's activities. And you can go under each subheading and see, where am I expected to be at this time? Because this is something, definitely, if you don't know that, if you play this game and you're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be at what time, yeah, that's really going to screw you over. But it is, it's just a few clicks away from being looked up, and it's the same on the PC. I forget, it's probably going to the pressing escape to get, but yeah, and it is there's, yeah, once you look that up, you know, that would actually be a great place to put the instructions for how to use the camera. But yeah, once you look that up, then it's much more, then at that point it's about figuring out, you know, and planning. And again, you've got hints for that, and the game isn't actually, the game tells you where to be, where you're allowed to be at what times of the day. And is, of course, it's one of those things where the game tells you, you know, the Nazis tell you, you are expected to be at certain places in the, or is it one of the other prisons? I forget. I think it's the Nazis at the very start. And obviously the game expects you to go to different, you know, it's literally impossible to complete this game without going into illegal areas. And I would also say it's probably impossible without having to go through areas that you are otherwise allowed at times where you aren't allowed. But yeah, probably. But anyway, yeah, it's obvious. It's one of those things where the game tells you you're expected to do this, this, and this, and then you're actually expected to do the opposite. But that's also, again, if this game could have been made where it wasn't guards, certainly where it wasn't Nazi guards, where just, you know, let's just say that there's like a, yeah, I'm not sure I can come up with something that isn't at all guards, but yeah, or just removed entirely. Let's say it's a stealth game where you basically no one is going to find you or something, but you're still expected to sneak or something. It would be so much less impactful. That's, you know, it's part of the appeal of this and of Thief and Hitman and and Commandos, you know. It's the fact that you are where you're not supposed to be. You are where you're not allowed to be. You know, that just gives it that extra kick, you know, like how in Grand Theft Auto you're breaking the law in all these different ways. You know, it's fun to, in this completely safe and not harmful way. You know, not immediately harmful. You can talk about how there might be values communicated that are harmful, but yeah, to break the rules in this place where it's not going to directly hurt anyone, you know, do not go out and actually do the Grand Theft Auto stuff in real life. You know, just take Butter's word for it. That does not go well. Yeah, it's so satisfying to do the wrong thing, especially when it's Nazis you're dealing with, you know, and just these, yeah, you know, you want to defy them. And wow, I've almost spent an hour and I am less than halfway through. I'm probably gonna have to start hurrying. But yeah, it's that really gives it a lot of what it, you know, the what's it called? Sniper Elite is another example, you know, where yeah, you're doing this thing. That's a, yeah. Now the yeah, I think that's what I had to say about that. Contrary to Stone's personality, this is a game about being patient. You'll have to observe your surroundings carefully. You'll have to keep your jailers from getting suspicious by being where you're supposed to be at the appointed times, and then sneak around through the compound when the guards aren't looking, procuring useful items and finding a viable escape route. And you can also time skip if you are safe and it's the wrong period for your next attempt, as there are certain areas that you are allowed in at specific times that can aid, and otherwise this could stand the chance, and otherwise this could, it could become boring, you know. Yeah, it doesn't become boring. Man, sometimes when I'm quoting from my old review, sometimes, yeah, my writing is not always the, yeah. But yeah, that really is, you know, in most of these kinds of games, you're just always where you're not allowed to be. Or, yeah, that's too much of a generalization. But yeah, in something like Commandos, basically there's nowhere that you're allowed to be. You're completely behind enemy lines. So yeah, you know, and in Hitman, there's also, you're very frequently in areas where you're not allowed. And you know, where 47 himself is not allowed, but not where, you know, so and hence the disguises, and you know, a lot of Assassin's Creed, you have to go through areas like that to accomplish missions and such, or do something that isn't, and or do something that isn't socially acceptable and such, you know. Yeah, it's that kind of thing where, yeah. Now, let's see. Now this, yeah, this review gave it a 2.5 out of 5 and said, you know, not turning up for lunch or any activities does not even attract the guards' attention. They just don't notice. And I think they figure that, you know, if you're, yeah, I guess they assume that you're not causing trouble. Maybe they don't care. I mean, they don't really, they only do the head count at roll call, and then they, yeah, they probably just figure that, you know, if you are somewhere you're not supposed to be, you're going to be spotted and punished. You know, they figured that they have enough guards patrolling and such that it's not going to, it's not an issue. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably pretty boring being a guard, and especially just standing and standing there while other people eat, and yeah, they're not gonna be like, I think there's someone missing, and start leaving their post and such. But I do suppose an argument could be made that it's, yeah. Because, I mean, I was going to say that, maybe they figure you're in your barracks. In some camps, that's not allowed. It's not allowed to be, you're not allowed to be in your barracks during mealtime. Now, actually, I'm not entirely certain you're allowed to be in your barracks during mealtime in any camp. I forget. Now, yeah, and the watch is basically a small pocket watch, and let's see, yeah, the top of the screen. I forget exactly which corner or whatever, but yeah, which again, it makes sense. He has a pocket watch in his pocket, which he watches to make sure, that the time is, yeah. Maybe that's why he can't carry two things. Maybe he has the pocket watch in the left hand. And it has like one of those things like in Desperado and Taxi Driver, where it can slide into and out of the arm of the sleeve. Now, now, contraband / currency. So, there we go. There is a prison economy. Cash can be used as bribes, and you can trade luxury items with fellow prisoners for bits of kit. I guess that's British, or even for a bit of help. I think I might be sounding like I have a problem with Britain. I don't. Well, Brexit was pretty. Never mind. And yeah, you can buy smuggled items. You need a crowbar to break into a building, a miniscope to check out the guard towers. If you got the currency, all it takes is a little chat with a local smuggler. But then again, you've got to get the currency to begin with, which isn't money, but other things prisoners would want and need. Cigarettes, candy, you name it. And that's, again, something it makes a lot of sense, because that is something we know that happens in prisons. They smuggle stuff like that around, and there are times where stuff like this is found in weird places, but again, a lot of the time it's realistic. So yeah, cigarettes in maybe where a soldier is standing. He's put some cigarettes on a table or something, and yeah, you can sneak up and get them. And maybe there's some candy in officers' quarters or the kitchen or the like, and yeah, and they can even be used for gambling in, a sideshow style game of cards, dice, and stone throwing. And Thief Dark Shadows and Thief 2014 currency / loot glints, so you can tell it apart from other objects. Thus, you don't waste time walking quote-unquote, into objects that you thought were currency. Some objective items also glint. Context clues tend to let you know whether the glinty thing you're looking at is currency or an objective item, because obviously, you know, if you're going around a room just walking into every glinty thing thinking that's the objective item, you might be wasting a bunch of time if you're only there for the objective item. And you know, this is especially if you're taking a lot of effort to sneak in there. Maybe there's even a guard in the room and you have to avoid being seen. Yeah, that's obviously... and I dropped the pen. I can't think of a single time where I walked, you know, where I accidentally wasted any time getting to the wrong thing, thinking that it was the other of the two. And I should also briefly mention loot you get just by walking into it. But objective items you do have to press pick up to get, which also, you know, picking an objective item up, and if it's a hand item, dropping it is always just one click away. So yeah, and it is the fact that it is that means that, again, let's say you're being watched, so you walk to where the where the item is, and you don't want to pick it up just yet because someone is looking at you, and if you pick it up immediately, you'll be seen picking it up, and that's against, you know, rules. So you wait for him to turn, then you press the button, and yeah. Mini games. Yes, you can actually play games in the prison, like dice, it's got it. Like to throw rocks and knock over cans, you can do it not only... You gamble for much needed currency so you can buy items to fool guards and help your way to freedom. And yeah, that really, personally, I don't do the mini games much, but I never do in games that have, not unless there's like maybe an achievement in it or a special option that's really cool or something. But yeah, you know, when you're getting currency, you can do it by doing really well with these mini games, which of course also you risk losing currency if you're not good at them, or by sneaking around in illegal places. And every time you sneak around in an illegal place, you risk being punished. Gameplay. Prisoner of War is quite different from other stealth games in that, although other stealth games utilize some small form of violence for the player to achieve his objectives, this game portrays little to no violence. For example, if the Nazi guards on duty spot the player acting suspiciously, they will not shoot on sight. Instead, they will call out the player to cease his activity. If the player continues to disobey the guard will shoot him. And you basically... It's almost impossible to die in this. There are a few objectives where if you are caught, they will kill you. Or if something happens, you will die, and you'll know it when you see it. But most of the game, it is impossible to actually die. And it's also noteworthy when you get, you get seen doing something, they'll yell, "Stop doing that." If you can make it around a corner and hide and get away, you might actually be able to shake his... So that's kind of... I'm not 100% certain if you're punished more for... Well, yeah. If you just stand there, you'll be put in the cooler, and that takes, that takes some time and worsens your grade. Can worsen your grade. It worsens your grade because you were caught and punished for it. And or at least risks it. If you further disobey and then are shot, you have to heal, which takes longer. I think it's 1 or 2 days for being put in the cooler, and it's at least a day more of that than that for being shot, because yeah, you're healing, you're recovering, and the cooler, excuse me, is, yeah, you know, they're punishing you. It obviously it's not going to yeah, you know, that's why you're not there for a few hours, like yeah, you're. And there are other similar such scenarios for the player losing. If the player is near the guard when he is caught acting suspiciously, he will automatically surrender and lose. These scenarios open up a whole new dimension of ideas for the player to achieve his objectives. I get the feeling, this is straight from Wikipedia, I get the feeling that the person who wrote this was a big fan of this game. And yes, that is, you know, he's really painting a rosy picture here, but yeah, I enjoy it. The key aspect to completion of this game is stealth. It also makes this game extremely difficult to complete. Furthermore, the game does not provide the player any combat mechanics. The player is unable to fight or kill any of their opponents and is instead required to complete their objectives through the use of stealth and deception. It is literally, there is no such thing as knocking someone out in this. You can't, as you sometimes can in the first two Thief games, you can't lock someone inside of a room because they don't have the key and you do. You know, yeah, there's nothing you can do, and you can't like lure someone super far away from where they started out, as you can, you know, in Commandos 2, once you have like a general's uniform on the spy, you can have guys walking like 20 meters without any problem. All you have to do is follow them and keep telling them, okay, now go there, now go there. You know, again, I love that in that game, and I love being able to lock, especially the kid in Metal Age. But yeah, it's just, yeah. Anyway, I still am not 100% certain if that's how you're supposed to solve that, or if that's just, oh, you know, something that they didn't realize you could do, but that I mean, it doesn't glitch the game out and cause any seeming problems. And certainly, if you can't solve that at all, that's really frustrating. But anyway, yeah, it completely forces you to, you know, and you can't, like, there's no such thing as like a smoke bomb, or, you know, there's nothing you can do to slow down guards or such. The only thing you can do is audio distract them and just straight up hide from them. Now, "13 pages into a 44-page document." And let's see. And yeah, there's no luring enemies into traps. You know, an audio distraction is a mere stone's throw away. You know, you can cause audio distractions by throwing stones at buckets and such. And you have a limited amount of stones, but there are a lot of places to replenish them. But, you know, you don't want to have to do that while you're sneaking. You know, replenishing your rocks is one of the things you can do completely socially acceptable, because there are piles of rocks in areas you're allowed to be in at certain times. So yeah, you know, I maintain there's almost no stealth game ever made that doesn't, you know, that doesn't have audio distractions, wherein the ability to cause them wouldn't be an improvement. I will admit that I believe in my reviews of the Outlast game, you know, the first game and its expansion pack, that I said that I would have liked for it to be there. I'm not 100% sure. I can see why it's not there, because it very easily could be. You know, I forget if I've suggested this before, but for example, it could have you like throwing batteries to cause an audio distraction, which also means that you then have less extra batteries for the camera. But the fact that you literally cannot. You can be seen, and then you can run away, and then you can hide, and you can watch certain enemies before they see you. So, you know, you wait for them to walk to a certain place, and then you make a run for it. I do have to appreciate that. That is one of the, yeah. But yes, sometimes the enemies do give up looking for you very easily, which I think is unintentional, since it makes the game more forgiving and attacks too much. So, but yeah, you wait for them to turn away from you, stay just outside the cone of vision for them. You take the longer route, knowing that this means you have to especially hurry, though since it means you spend longer, at risk of being caught. Now, and some people actually say that, it's a bad thing, that the game doesn't allow violence. There are so many stealth games that allow at least some violence. It just, I'm sorry, if you need a game where you can run around and like knock everyone out, and the game isn't going to yell at you for it, play the Thief games. If you want something where you're, rendering unconscious and tying up, even taking clothes of a ton of, play Commandos, and to an extent also Hitman, but there are far more in Commandos. Run around and kill everyone. Splinter Cell Blacklist. There's tons of games where the game isn't going. Technically, you're rewarded more in Splinter Cell Blacklist if what you do is sneak around and try to avoid affecting others as much as possible, or at least just knocking them out and then their bodies not being found. But if you do that once throughout the entire game, and then you start doing the other, play styles, you'll have more than enough money to buy all the stuff you need, to not need to have to, really the only thing is that you have to have, if you're running around and, whether you're doing it stealthily or loudly, if you're running around killing everyone, for one thing, you're not going to earn much. And if you're loudly killing everyone, you need serious hardware to be able to consistently kill everyone without, because they have guns. And if you haven't at that point ghosted your way through the entire main story, yeah, you probably, it's going to take a long time for you to get the money to. But that's all. It's just, excuse me, it's not as though the game doesn't let you do it. It just you're basically expected to do that first. And then there are, of course, some areas where you can't kill everyone, but very few, especially in the story itself. Now, and again, I love the first two Thief games. I love Commandos 2. I love Hitman 1 and 4. And yeah, Splinter Cell Blacklist I love a lot about. Stuff. Now, the stealth types are line of sight stealth, with waiting for guards to face away from you, taking a route that is being watched less or occasionally even not at all, and hiding via silence, some social stealth, causing audio distractions. And yeah, you have this mini radar with cones displaying each enemy's view. And if he's just alert, when he's just looking around, it's basically white. If he heard something, it's going to turn yellow, and he's also going to say something. But if he's far enough away, you might not hear him say something. So again, watch for it to turn yellow. If he spotted you and he's like determined to stop you, it turns red. So you always know, and this is critical to stealth games, that you know whether someone is, yeah. And I do appreciate that some games, it shouldn't have that kind of thing. And the fact that you can't eliminate any enemies make it more intense. You cannot decrease the amount of enemies looking for you, no matter what you do. It is literally impossible in this game. At the very most, you can temporarily lure someone away or lure someone to look in another direction. And yeah, again, there are some reviewers who don't get that it's a strength, not a weakness. The game does have weaknesses. Let's not confuse the, yeah. Now, you can, let's see, yeah. The actual sneaking mechanics are done reasonably well. You can use the analog stick to move slowly and quietly, or to jog briskly. You can move from a crouched position as well. You can scale short walls and fences. And also, I forget if this is in the notes anywhere, but I appreciate the moment that you're doing something, the moment you pick up a hand object, or the moment you're within an area that you're not allowed to be, Stone will automatically, not quite crouch, but like he'll change his stance to make him harder to make out from a distance. Which I think personally is the very best way of making out is distance kissing. But yeah, the I can't help it. The making dad jokes like that. I mean, it's very possible to not just go up and kiss someone. Donald Trump. So if you were unsure, you will immediately be able to tell. And it is also it's realistic. I mean, at the end of the day, you can control Stone to do something really dumb if that's what you feel like. You can run directly into a guard, or you can, even if you know that you shouldn't, you can throw a stone at a guard. That's going to make him aggressive, even if you are somewhere you're supposed to be. But nevertheless, he's still, the moment that he's within an area, that he's gonna do the kind of thing, yeah. Now, while climbing fences is fine, you just press action to climb, and then once he's climbed to the other side, you press action to drop down to on that other side. Climbing walls can be really annoying. I will say, I had forgotten, there's not that much. I had remembered it as there being more, but that's, when something is bad, you remember it as being more or worse than it is sometimes. But yeah, climbing walls can be really annoying. You press action to climb to the top of it, where you'll then stand. Then the awful camera can really start screwing you over majorly. You have to then move forward to go over the wall. If you move to either side, he'll walk on top of the wall instead of going over. I don't know why it's... I mean, you climb the wall at the point where you want to get over on the other side. You don't... There's no reason in this game that I've come across to walk on top of a wall. I don't know if it's something that they accidentally left over from having tried to do something there but you're such an easy target, and you might accidentally walk back off to, you know, if you accidentally move back the way you came, he'll go back down on the side you just climbed from. You know, I don't know why not have it that you hold down action until he's climbed from one side to having dropped down on the other side. Then if you let go of action before you get all the way there, he'll go back to the most recently completed step. And then if you do want to walk atop that wall in car style, you just let go of action when you've climbed atop it. I forget what game I've seen this done in, but I definitely have seen this kind of thing. And let's see. And the HUD and interface in general is quite good. And it's a game without any blood, which, again, you know, you get shot, there isn't any blood. It's clear that he got shot. It's the PG-13 kind of thing, you know. But yeah, again, it's appreciated. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not sure I'd want a child to play it, but like a 13-year-old could play this without any problems, basically. So, and somehow, even though the table shouldn't be able to hide you, it will. Once you once you crawl under it, you're literally not covered by anything. They should have made those tables have a tablecloth that you'd be covered by. If you didn't press action to hide, you would easily be seen from under there. But the moment you hide under there, it's just... And that's, again, it's because ultimately it's not that the game... It's not actually derived from the game. At that point, it's not whether or not the enemy is looking in your direction anymore, or if his view is unobstructed. The moment you've crawled under something, you are just invisible. And this makes sense when you're under a building that's on, like, raised kind of thing, you know, because the guards aren't, like, leaning down and looking under there. But when you're under a table that's, you know, that would, before you crawled under it, it like reached your midsection, and again, no tablecloth, nothing covering. It's just, it's a plate with legs, and you're hiding between the legs, which again is, I really didn't mean this to get so suggestive, but yeah, I really feel like that's a place where you could be seen, you know, such as by Jennifer Connelly. Now, you can hide in bushes as well. Let's see. Why is talk to guard on the main action key? I almost never accidentally talk to a guard. I'm sneaking behind to open door, but when I do, I get frustrated. Actually, I don't think it's ever happened, but still, it's, you know, it's something where you're sitting there and it's tense without, it shouldn't be, you know. I don't know why you can even talk to a regular guard, really. Actually, I guess I didn't do this on this playthrough, but maybe when you're wearing a uniform that isn't of a soldier, you can talk to soldiers, and yeah, maybe. But then it should only be when you're, like, if you pick something up that you can put on as a disguise, that's the only time you can walk up to a mirror and the put on disguise function will appear. So why not do that for yeah, because most of the rest of the time you don't want to talk to a guard, you know. Basically, only if you're in a place where you're allowed to be. I think at that point you're allowed to talk to the guard. But yeah. Now, length slash replayability. This took me 6 hours to complete, and obviously it took me longer the first time, and since then, I haven't always been able to complete it this fast, but I know everything I'm supposed to do in a very effective way because I've tried out different things, excuse me, so there's no wasted time. You know, if you buy this today and you've never played it before and you're not like using a walkthrough or something, then it's going to take you considerably longer to get all the way through. And then, you know, once you've completed it, you can replay it and try to get a better rating because now you know what to do, and you can also see if maybe the way you did it wasn't the most effective way to do it. And yeah, it's like Hitman, you know, and in Commandos you try to do it well, no, yeah, Commandos too, you can, yeah. Now, I've played this a ton of times, and I've earned an A grade on each level at least once before this, too. And let's see. Okay, making progress. Page 22, now I'm 31. I don't mean for these to get obscenely long, although I'm not sure my definition of that is the same as everyone else's. Controls. Now, how you can rotate the camera with the R3 button takes a long time to get used to. And yeah, let's see. No smartphone, I'm trying to scroll down, not up. There we go. But yeah, it's, you know, some of the way it's fairly intuitive, but yeah, it's especially the camera that screws you over, but basically it's not tank controls. So the moment the camera goes to a different, you know, you always move in the direction that you're pointing the stick. And then there are a few times where you know, when you can do a special action, it always shows up. And some of them, it's like, what am I looking at? What does that mean? And camera control. Control of the camera can be problematic at times, ranging from a minor distraction in some situations to a major problem in others, and I would have to agree with that. And it's especially bad indoors, and also just when you're close to something. And I know that it's a problem in a lot of games, but it didn't have to be this big of a problem. Basically, if you're, you know, it'll show you the back of Stone's head or even the front when you're like really close to a wall. Yeah, that gets really annoying. And, you know, the first person view can help a lot, but you can't play through this in first person perspective on the first try. You can unlock that, and I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I've ever played it like that. I'm not sure it makes it easier. It might make it harder. Although control of your character is probably easier, but you know, the third person perspective allows you to see things that you can't in a first person perspective. Now, you can hold down center view to move the camera as you move, so it will always face in the direction you face. But it moves very quickly, so even if you yourself are moving slowly, it's very hard to use like that. yeah, if you touch it up against something, you can't, say, open a walkthrough. So, for example, a wall, Stone will press his hands against it as if bracing himself so he won't bump into it and hurt himself. And this wastes upwards of a second as you're trying to sneak. And you wouldn't be bumping into stuff if the camera wasn't shifting suddenly. And Silent Hill Origins, which I'm replaying because I'm determined to replay every single Silent Hill game I own, also changes the camera angle, sometimes very suddenly, but you never brace against something you walk into, so it's not as if it can't be done. Tons of games made around 2002 also didn't have the bracing. Excuse me. And graphics. Yeah, there we go. Now, depending on the version, on the PlayStation 2 version, the characters blink, and apparently, I forget on the PC version, but I read at least one review that said they never ever blink. On the PlayStation 2 version, they blink plenty. They blink, they don't blink, you know, Bella Swan, they blink very naturally to how you, yeah. It might be the single most natural looking aspect to the faces, actually. Yeah, basically the faces can look kind of plasticky and there's not a lot of movement on them. And in general, I mean, for 2002 graphics, they're not that good. And, you know, obviously for today, yeah, but excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, you know, games that games that have better graphics than this, even though they came out around the same time, include Hitman Silent Assassin, Alien vs. Predator 2. And sometimes it's far too dark to see very far and tell where you're going. This was the case for me until the second to last level, and I guess it's possible it's because the TV I'm playing it on, you know, is, you know, it's for a PlayStation 3 and a Blu-ray player and that kind of thing, you know, but I didn't have any problems with Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill Origins, so, and I'm not having any problems with Silent Hill Origins, so it's not as though, yeah. And the Silent Hill games are also, you know, you can't see very far, but in that it isn't, yeah. And audio. Making progress. It varies, but certainly the music works. It's tense when it needs to be, and it's calm when that's called for, and it's distinct. If you played some of the music from this game to me, you know, without telling me that it was from this game, and, you know, without me having played it in a long time, I would still be able to recognize it. AI enemies? Yeah, / enemies. And yeah, sometimes the enemies really easily, you know, forget that, you know, I'm spotted and I'm hot and I hide really quickly, and they just give up looking, and yeah. And I'm getting the distinct feeling that me and this smartphone are going to start disagreeing. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Page 36 out of 44. We're getting there. Is it challenging? I found this to be a lot easier on PC than PS2, but if you want to play it today, it's easier to get it and a PlayStation than a PC that can properly run it. I get that PCs today are much faster, but I don't really understand why you can't tell them just run slower and thus be able to, yeah. Or at least not, I don't know. I read about, like, what's it called? Like, setting up a, what's it called? Yeah, you know, telling synthetic computer kind of thing, where you tell it to be slower or something. But yeah, I think that's above my pay grade. I can't really. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, basically, it's challenging in certain ways, and certainly it's not an easy game. You know, but it's a game that will challenge you, and a lot of the time for the right reason, but some of the time it's, you know, camera and such. But yeah, I've basically gone into how it challenges you already. So, grading system. That's with a D, not a T. Excuse me. I have to read this guy gave it a 3 out of 5 overall, but what I guess is a but a 4 out of what I guess is a 10 for gameplay, and he says this is where the game fails, and as we all know, gameplay is what makes or breaks a game. And then he says, I hate it when the time skip happens after loading or saving a game. This is a nuisance when you want to get an A grade on a mission. A grades are needed to unlock secrets. But that's the point. To get a better grade, you have to complete the entire camp without saving, or at least almost not saving. And if you want the A grade, you can't get caught or shot or the like, much at all either. You're unlikely to get it the first try, so what you do is you complete it once, then you try again, memorizing and doing everything perfect, not saving. This is literally the whole point of the game, you know, because again, the first time you complete it, keeping in mind, this is a game where you basically can't die, and you can't permanently. They're never going to permanently put you in the cooler. And there are almost no times in the overall game where you can die. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, the game has a series of objectives and a series of levels, and I think there are maybe 2 places where you can die. For real. And, you know, and if that happens, if you saved even once, you can return to that save as many times as you want. It's just that you won't be, but yeah, other than that, you will always you will lose time, which will count against your grade. But it's not a game where you do have to, let's hypothetically say that you managed to sneak all the way to where you needed to go, and you picked up the thing that you needed, but then you got caught. Then you can go and get it again. You know, sometimes you can. I'm not 100% certain if it's all the time, but sometimes you can sneak into where they put it and get it back. Other times you can pay someone to get it for you. So yeah, it's not. I mean, if you don't care about getting a good grade, this game is way easier than if you do. But yeah, the A grades unlock secrets that can make it, some of them make it easier to play, some of them make it harder to play, some of them just are fun. One of them allows you to turn the guards tiny or gigantic, and yeah, that's just fun. That's not, yeah. But it's not, yeah, I don't understand why, how this person, he's basically saying this game is hard and I don't like that. This is a difficult game to play, especially if you want a good grade, and it's not, you're very unlikely to get a good grade on the first time. I think, yeah, and hints count against your grade, So yeah, you completed once, just giving it your best shot and maybe trying to figure out what would be even better to do. Then you get a grade. Then you play it again later. The game has a level selector. Any level you've completed, you can start over. So it's not as though you get through the whole game and you get the grades you do, and then the game's like, man, you suck, and you're like, no, I tried. No, just do it again. Figure out how to do it better and do it again. That's the idea of the game. You're not supposed to only play it once. Not if you want these. Not if you want a good grade. If you don't care about your grade, you can just complete it once, and you can half-ass it a lot of the way. But again, part of the fun is, you're dealing with these Nazis who are like trying really hard. They have a lot of discipline and they're really proud of their discipline. And so when you manage to not only sneak past them and thus prove that their discipline isn't enough, but when you manage to out-discipline their discipline and get an A grade on level, it is so gratifying. This is, again, look, if this guy was saying, if he was referring to a game wherein you could only complete each once, so you had to like delete all your progress once to play, like, let's say you got a bad grade in one of the last chapters, and oh no, I have to start all over just to get to that one so I can get a better grade, like in old school difficult games. Yeah, that's frustrating, but that's not the case with this game. You don't lose progress if you just, when you've completed a chapter, it tells you what grade you get, and then it asks you if you want to save the fact that you completed that level. So it's not, anyway. Something I do wish was the save files tell you how long you spent in the camp, but not how many objectives you completed. There's room to fit it. Heck, just put the objective number instead of the time spent in the camp. It's not. Yeah, I don't know why they do that. And again, I feel like that's maybe something that, yeah. Now, sometimes the game will corrupt save game files, although I think this might be the only game where that I have played, wherein the game itself will actually tell you this save file has been damaged. That just, when you queue up in the loading menu, when you point to a save file that has been damaged, it says this has been damaged. You're not like, it's not that you click on it and then it says it couldn't load this. No, it labels them. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, but yeah, but anyway, save frequently, and then again, well, yeah, if you want to avoid that, don't save at all, because I haven't experienced it just like crash without. But anyway, yeah. If you don't want to risk anything, save in different, and it's not gonna. I'm pretty sure it doesn't count against your grade how many times you save or how many different files you save. Now. Yeah, and this is from a user review that gave it a 3 out of 5. If you're caught by the Germans, they will throw you in a cell. If you're shot, you'll be sent to sickbay. You can never die. No matter how many times you get caught or shot, you're free the next day for creating more havoc. Yes, and your grade suffers for it. So it's not as if there's no consequence. The basic idea is that you almost never have to load your game. And if you try to get through the game without saying, that's a huge relief. So whether you're trying for a good grade or not, you can put that challenge on yourself, never saving. And at least it doesn't leave you with low health like, say, Soma. And do note that on the PS2, save games are really big. So if, like me, you save constantly in dozens of different files, it'll eat up a lot of space on your memory card. Now, but yeah, I already mentioned briefly secrets. They hugely change the game experience and add replayability. And again, some of them, if that's what you're into, will make the game harder. One of them allows you to make the guards better at seeing you, but you can also set it to making, yeah, to either make them worse at seeing you or to make them better at seeing you, and to, yeah, just, some of them make it more difficult. And if you just want some indications of that, the walkthrough by Java Kid has a brief listing of that. So yeah, multiplayer / co-op, or rather, no multiplayer / co-op. Yes, there isn't any multiplayer or co-op, and I was, I tried to think of whether or not I think there should be, and I mean, I guess it is possible that one player could be trying to escape while the other player figure out how the other is trying to escape. Did I already do a video talking about that? Maybe, manage to stop him. Maybe you could only check one place at a time, for example. And co-op could be the two players doing things at the same time, maybe in different places, and or something like the co-op of Splinter Cell Double Agent. But yeah, some of that is doing different things. Yeah, at the same time, slightly different places. Yeah, and and it is also, I mean, something like, yeah, this one review says something like, excuse me, a race to see who could escape first. Excuse me, could be interesting. There we go. Mission design. We're getting there. Excuse me. Oh, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, some of the pages I won't be reading because it's just me having written down about missions. I probably won't read. No, wait, that's in another file. Never mind. Oh, here we go. This is actually the last. Now, basically, you're always moving from a safe place through unsafe locations to get an object, and often carry the object, sometimes in your hands, so avoiding being spotted with it, even if you're in disguise and or in a safe place, back to the escape committee, who have the overall plan and will tell you what next to do. But while the object will sometimes be a key or a crowbar, obviously for getting into somewhere you aren't allowed, it's sometimes something more interesting and unusual, and it will nearly always be found in a logical place. If you're getting a German uniform, maybe there's one in the laundry area, crowbar in the tool store. Maybe you're getting documents from the commandant's quarters, and so, yeah. And a key will be where, relevant Germans can quickly and easily get to it. And, sometimes maybe you need to photograph something for proof documentation. Maybe you're destroying something the Germans need. And, when you ultimately escape a camp, you don't need to go back with the object first, because you're going out and using it. And, yeah, and then frequently also getting getting really deep into an area where you really don't want to be caught and such. And there are some timed objectives in addition to the roll call issues, and whenever there is a timed objective, literally, it has the timer and at the middle of the top of the screen, you know, yeah, in the top, in the very middle, like where the no spoilers tag is right now, you know, very obviously counting down, so there's no, you know, you're not wondering about that at all. Now, Terminator. In my Terminator Genesis review, this was a game I mentioned as possibly working for a Terminator stealth game where he plays the humans. And, you know, now that I've played this again, you know, when I recorded that review, I hadn't played this game for years, maybe a decade. So, yeah. Now, obviously you could make one from the Terminator perspective that would work like a Hitman game, but I want to focus on the humans and on this game, and it wouldn't make any sense to make this game from a Terminator perspective, you know, yeah. Now, but yeah, as TechCom. Now, the camp could be one of the worker camps that Kyle mentions. Every guard, an HK, not a Terminator skeleton. Throwing stones for audio distractions makes sense, and it should probably have them kill you if they spot you somewhere you shouldn't be. Maybe give the player quick saves, or like checkpoint saves or something. Have it have really great AI so they investigate if they see or hear something unusual, and don't just let go. Maybe you should need to continually lay out a false trail, keep making noise, leaving things behind for them to see, etc. Maybe they call in extra, yeah, like reinforcements in case you don't have... I am running out of things to say, so this is for vision should change. There we go. Yeah, you know, so to make it more challenging, and yeah. Now, thoughts. Please note that this video has spoilers for the subject. There we go. And I will not be going into... Yeah, just briefly, I only want to, you know, because I'm not that curious when it comes to history or anything else, but you know, when reading through the Wikipedia to research this game, and I read through the story, apparently the glider in Colditz that you end up escaping with, that there actually was a glider in Colditz. That's, yeah, that's pretty cool that they legitimately thought to, yeah. Level notes. There we go. You know, you're told you know, that one of the things that would be good for you to get is brandy. I'm sorry, but my life, my love, and my lady is the sea, so that's not gonna happen. And yes, for the end of chapter 1, you know, completing objective 4, I think it's too bad JD dies so early. I didn't care anywhere near as much for any ally introduced later. I will say that I can see why, from his perspective, it seemed like the safer option. For all we know, they would have checked the back of the truck, or, driven back to the holding camp, or at least done either of those before driving on out and actually getting to an area that would be safe for the two of you to get. Yeah. And I do also spend the rest, almost the entire rest of the game, missing the different take on a roll call. Here it's interrupted because there's a sudden new prisoner, and I wish there would be a slightly new one each time you complete an objective, since you, no matter what, find yourself facing at least a few of them per camp. And I'm not sure there's a single time where, yeah, there's almost every single time you've completed an objective, you will go through at least one more roll call. You'll miss some of them, but there'll usually be at least one between, yeah. And I don't mean ones based on, like, the Germans realizing a prisoner did something wrong, because certainly some of the time they don't. Just have them, lightly taunt the prisoners, just, it's cold tonight, I will be in my nice warm bed. I forget which of the camps it is, but one of them almost says that. But just, yeah, one day he could say that, and then another day he could say one of the others, yeah. And let's see. And I mean, on earlier playthroughs, I talked to every single person that I could in the camps. So we are talking every single one got a chance to make a real impression on me, and some of them did, but I never cared as much for them as I did about JD, and just, yeah. And it also, I mean, I get why they kill him off so early, because it would be a completely different game if the rest of the game was you. I mean, really, most of the time, I mean, there are a few times where it's like, oh, everyone's going to be escaping this place soon or something, but yeah, other times it's like it's you and Harding, and if Harding was replaced with JD in the entire game, it would be completely different. Although I really find the dynamic, I think Harding is just annoying in how he's always so reserved, and he doesn't want to tell you that you're doing really well and such. But yeah, I make it to chapter 3. The Commandant's a lucky guy. He has an excuse to wear a monocle. And I think this was after completing Objective 2 of Chapter 3, another variant on the roll call, and I had honestly forgotten it was even there. And yeah, this is also where, I'm not saying that I personally could write it better, but the Schliemann messing up and being too scared to report catching you and or Harding doing wrong is contrived and hard to take seriously. And again, it just takes away from the tension in these cutscenes, not the rest of the, yeah. And completing Chapter 3, Objective 3, cute detail with the echo, although it's again maybe slightly silly for, yeah. And, Chapter 3 having completed Objective 4. The prisoners have been so troublesome. Look, Commandant, don't try to stall. And really convenient that you just get to rejoin the prisoners, even though you were caught. And, let's see. What else we have? And, completing Chapter 4, Objective 4. You will all be shot for this, but not by youth. This is how bad your aim is. It's actually weird because earlier when shooting JD, yeah, I guess it matters if you're someone the game wants get shot or not. And, complete Chapter 5, Objective 2. If he so much as sneezes out of turn, I want him shot. Well, after 4 sneezes, the world turns against you. It's just harmless mischief. Mischief, mischief. And completing Chapter 5, Objective 4. So pathetically trustworthy, you Americans. Look who's talking. And Stoll being knocked out of the glider room is kind of silly, but I do really appreciate the closure. He's basically been Stone's nemesis throughout the entire game, and obviously they did have to have something like that. And yeah, I do think that they did a good job. A good job overall. And yeah, again, absolutely love this game. Always have, always will. And yeah, we got there, and not much more than 2 hours either. So, hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please comment, thumbs up, and subscribe for more content.